They always said you were forgettable, quiet, harmless. Like the kind of soul the world walks past without noticing. But something ancient noticed you. Something buried in shadows, waiting centuries for a vessel it could finally inhabit. And it didn't pick the loudest or the strongest. It picked you. Now there's something living inside your silence, and once it awakens, nothing and no one will ever be safe again. You ever notice how the quiet ones carry the loudest storms? Nobody sees it. They walk past you, talk over you, laugh like your silence is weakness, but they have no idea what's waiting beneath your skin. You weren't born loud, you were born listening, watching, absorbing every scar this world thought you couldn't handle. And while they were busy chasing validation, you were being carved from the inside out, by pain, by rejection, by that constant echo of not being enough. Let's be honest, you felt it, that tight grip in your chest, that bitter taste when they underestimated you for the 100th time, the way they looked through you like you didn't even exist. And maybe for a while you started believing it too, that maybe you were just background noise in someone else's story. But no, something was just waiting, coiled in silence, a presence, a pressure, a force that didn't want to be noticed until it was ready to explode, and then it happened. The shift wasn't loud, it never is. One day you just stopped apologizing. You stopped shrinking. You stopped asking for permission to breathe, to be, to exist. It's like this shadow stepped out of you, smirking, whispering, "Yeah, now we begin." The Soul-Snatcher didn't break in. It was always there, dormant, waiting, testing you. And once it saw that last piece of you die, that fragile hope that people would finally get you, it chose you. You became the vessel. Not a hero, not a villain. Something much worse. Or much better, depending on who's telling the story. Because when something that old crawls inside your bones, it doesn't hand you power like a gift. It drags you through fire until you earn it. And fire, well, it doesn't care if you're ready. It only cares if you survive. Let's pause for a second. Do you remember that moment, that exact second when something inside you snapped and didn't come back? Maybe it was a betrayal, maybe a failure, maybe you just got tired of being everyone's joke. Whatever it was, that was your invitation, and you accepted. But let me ask you this, why you? Out of millions, billions, why did something ancient reach for you? Simple, because weakness is the perfect camouflage. They never see it coming. They laugh, they doubt, they look away, and that's when the Soul-Snatcher rises. Because power in plain sight, it threatens people. But power hidden behind soft eyes and quiet nods, that's deadly. That's poetic. That's the kind of power that rewrites fate without ever raising its voice. And you know what's funnier? The people who once ignored you, now they feel it. That shift. That cold stare that holds too much silence. That smirk like you've seen their endings and decided whether they are worth saving. Suddenly you're not invisible anymore. You're unforgettable. But not because you begged for attention. You became a myth, a warning. You're not just the host. You're the storm that learned how to walk on 2 feet. Still think silence means weakness? No. Silence is evolution. And you're just getting started. Ever wake up and feel like the air isn't just heavy? It's charged. Like something's crawling beneath your skin, watching the world through your eyes, but with its own agenda? Yeah, I did too. At first I thought I was losing it, that whisper in the back of my head. Not my voice. Not even close. It wasn't telling me to stay calm or think positive. No, it was laughing. Like it had been there all along, just waiting for me to finally break. And let's be honest, I was close. The way life cornered me, chewed me up, spat me out like I was disposable. Every rejection, every backstab, every time someone looked me dead in the eye and still didn't see me, it adds up. And the worst part, I started believing them. Believing maybe I was a placeholder, background noise, the warm-up act to someone else's spotlight. But then the infection started. The sky, not the kind you cure with pills and positivity. This one dug deeper. It rewired how I looked at everything. Pain, failure, fear. What used to scare me, now it excited me. I could smell weakness, not just in others, in myself. And I didn't run from it. I faced it, stared it down until it blinked first. That voice, it wasn't some demon, it wasn't evil. It was ancient, and it knew things I didn't want to admit, like how long I'd been pretending, how often I wore masks just to survive in rooms that never wanted me there in the first place. It stripped those masks off, brutally, and yeah, it hurt. But underneath, there was someone I hadn't met yet, someone lethal. Let me paint it for you. Imagine walking through your old school, the one where they said you'd never make it. Now imagine every hallway echoing with the sound of your name, spoken with admiration. No, with fear, with regret, because they remember the kid they laughed at, and now they see the storm that kid became. That's what it felt like. That's what becoming felt like. But it wasn't just revenge, it was deeper. This, hunger to evolve, to stop chasing peace and start building war, not with fists, with presence, with silence, with a gaze that says, I know what you did, and I no longer need to respond. That silence, it was louder than anything I could have screamed. Here's the kicker, though. Power doesn't come with applause. It comes with loss. Real power demands you give something up. Sleep, comfort, people, the parts of yourself that made excuses. And every time I let one go, that voice inside grew louder, clearer. It started shaping my choices, not because it forced me, but because I finally listened. Now I see the world for what it is. A place where the loudest ones are often the weakest, where the real threats move in shadows. They smile, they wait, and when they strike, it's surgical, cold, final. That's who I was becoming. Not a villain, not a hero, something untouchable, something necessary. The Soul-Snatcher didn't give me power. It revealed the power I buried under fear and people-pleasing, and pretending to be small so others wouldn't feel threatened. But guess what? I'm done shrinking. Let them feel threatened. Let them squirm. Because if this thing inside me has taught me anything, it's that the version of me they knew never really existed. And now they'll learn what it means to be chosen. Funny how quickly people change their tune when they feel your energy shift. The same ones who once pitied you now flinch when you speak. They used to mock your silence. Now they're terrified of what you're not saying. It's poetic, isn't it? They laughed when you were weak. Now they're whispering your name like it's a warning. The moment your posture changed, when you stopped nodding along and started looking through people, the world took notice. But not in the way you hoped. Not with applause. With fear, confusion, accusation. Because power that doesn't beg for approval, that unsettles people. They don't know how to process it. And that's when they turn on you. It starts small. A weird look, a snide comment wrapped in fake concern, then the passive-aggressive messages, the subtle distance. People who once called you friend now treat you like a threat. And why? Because you're finally becoming who you were never allowed to be. That's when it really hits you. You were never part of their world. You were just allowed to orbit it until your gravity got too strong. Let me guess. They said you changed? Of course they did. Because the moment you stopped shrinking to make others comfortable, you became the villain in their fragile little stories. And here's the kicker. They don't miss the old you. They miss the version of you they could control. You think I'm being dramatic? Good. That means you've felt it. You've felt that tension. The weight in a room when people realize they can't manipulate you anymore. It's the look they give when their old tricks stop working. When your silence isn't submission, it's strategy. When your smile doesn't mean softness, it means calculation. And the Soul-Snatcher, oh, it loves this part. Because this is where the host learns the truth. Power isolates. But isolation is freedom. When you're not chained by approval, you're free to become something terrifying. And not because you're cruel, but because you're focused. Because now you speak in actions, not apologies. Now your presence does what your words never could. It commands. They thought they could contain you. That as long as you played nice, you'd never outgrow them. But you weren't growing. You were molting. Shedding skin, preparing for war. And when the war came, you didn't flinch. You looked betrayal in the face and said, thank you. Because now you have no distractions, no illusions, no dead weight to carry into the fire. Just you and the voice inside. Let's get uncomfortable for a second. What if being abandoned was the best thing that ever happened to you? What if losing them gave you access to the version of yourself that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't break? The version that listens to no one but the storm inside. Because let me tell you something real. When the Soul-Snatcher chose you, it wasn't looking for perfection. It was looking for rage. For silence, for someone so deeply underestimated their rise would feel like an act of vengeance scripted by the universe itself. So go ahead, let them point, let them panic, let them say you've changed. You didn't change, you just stopped pretending. People think silence means weakness, that if you're not speaking, you've got nothing to say. But here's what they don't get. Silence isn't absence. It's calculation. You weren't quiet because you lacked words. You were silent because you were collecting data, watching who cracked first, who blinked, who lied while smiling. And in that silence, you learned everything. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped defending your every move. Because somewhere along the way, you realized explanations are for people trying to be understood. But you stopped needing that. Let that sit for a second. The more you vanished from the noise, the more dangerous you became. Not because you planned it, but because it was the only way to survive. You had to disappear just to hear yourself think, to unlearn their voice and find your own. And when you found it, you didn't shout. You whispered, because power that whispers is terrifying. Think about it. Who's more dangerous? The one screaming on the battlefield, or the one standing at the edge, calm, hands behind their back, just watching? That's you now, the watcher, the one who doesn't flinch when chaos hits, because you are the chaos, just dressed in calm. And the Soul-Snatcher? Yeah, it smiled when you chose silence. That was the test. Could you stay still long enough to listen? Not to others, to the part of you that's been buried under noise. The part that doesn't need likes or praise. The part that doesn't care who's watching. Let's be blunt, most people are terrified of quiet people. Not because they're boring, but because they can't figure them out. They can't put them in a box, and that frustrates them. They don't know how to handle someone who observes more than they react, because silence removes the power from their manipulation. You don't give them feedback. You don't bite the bait. You just watch. Now here's where it gets good. The same people who used to call you soft are now double-checking their tone when they speak to you. They can't explain it, but they feel the difference. That subtle shift in your energy, that look that says, try me, without you ever needing to say it. And when they try, you don't explode. You dismantle them with stillness. One raised brow, one pause too long, one moment of silence that screams louder than their entire personality ever could. You became a ghost with weight, a shadow that commands space, and not just in rooms, inside people's heads. They second guess your silence now. They wonder what you're thinking, if you're plotting, if you're done with them. And that, my friend, is control. So don't let them pull you back into the noise, because now you know the truth. Real power isn't in domination, it's in restraint. And the most dangerous weapon? A mind sharpened by silence and a smile they can't read. Most people will never admit this, but the real war? It's not out there. It's not the critics, the backstabbers, the fake friends. It's the voice in your head when you're lying in bed at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, asking yourself, what the hell am I even doing? That voice, it doesn't need to shout. It just knows exactly where to stab. I wasn't afraid of the world anymore. I was afraid of myself. See, the moment the Soul-Snatcher chose me, I thought I had gained something. Power, control, strength. And in a way, I did. But here's the twist no one warns you about. Power doesn't just amplify your potential. It amplifies your demons, your regrets, your obsessions, your addictions to being liked, to being understood, to being needed. You ever try negotiating with your own darkness? I did. I tried making rules, boundaries. I told the thing inside me what lines it couldn't cross, and it laughed, mocked me. Because the truth is, you can't leash the part of you that was born in chaos. You either learn to ride it, or it rides you, straight into self-destruction. That was the battle no one could see. Not fists, not weapons, just thought. Fine versus monster. And the scary part? Sometimes I didn't even know who was winning. There were days I'd stare in the mirror and not recognize the person looking back. Not because I looked different, but because I felt different, hollow, like something was moving behind my eyes, something that knew how to smile at people while secretly dissecting them. I became obsessed with control, not over others, over myself. And that's when I realized the monster inside didn't want to destroy me. It wanted to free me from hesitation, from guilt, From the fake smile I wore at family dinners and in corporate meetings. That beast wasn't trying to ruin my life, it was trying to hand me the life I was too afraid to take. But here's where things get dangerous. There's a line, a thin, jagged line between becoming powerful and becoming unrecognizable. I had to make a choice, embrace the darkness fully and lose myself in the process, or find a way to use it without letting it consume me. And no, that choice didn't come with a user manual, it came with sleepless nights. With moments where I almost burned bridges I couldn't rebuild. With times I wanted to disappear just to test if anyone would notice. Spoiler, most didn't. But that was the final wake-up call. If I was going to carry this thing inside me, I had to stop begging for balance. Balance is for people with options. I had to build control, not peace. I had to become the handler of my own chaos, because if I didn't, well, let's just say there wouldn't be much of me left. Now here's the twist that stings a little. What if the monster you've been running from isn't a curse, but your true self, stripped of fear? Sit with that for a moment. What if the part of you that wants revenge, that wants freedom, that wants silence, isn't evil? What if it's honest? And if it's honest, maybe it's time to stop running. It didn't happen all at once. There wasn't some dramatic lightning strike or ancient prophecy whispered into my ear. No, it crept up quietly, like a realization that had always been there, waiting for me to stop pretending. One day I just stopped asking for permission. Permission to speak, to move, to take up space. And the moment I stopped waiting, everything changed. That was the moment I became a problem. You see, the world is built to tolerate your silence. But the second you raise your voice, or worse, your standards, suddenly you're too much, too intense, too different. Funny how that works, right? They beg you to be authentic, but what they really mean is, be authentic in a way that doesn't challenge my comfort. I chose discomfort because the truth is, becoming unstoppable isn't about being fearless. It's about walking straight into fear with your eyes wide open and a grin that says, bring it. I stopped dressing my pain up in polite language. I stopped filtering my fire through their soft expectations. I started embracing the part of me that knew how to survive, even when everything else collapsed. And no, I didn't heal. I evolved. I didn't forgive everyone. I didn't suddenly find peace. What I found was clarity. That everything they told me to avoid, rage, ambition, obsession, were the exact things I needed to rise. Want a plot twist? The people who once mocked you will come back, but not to apologize. No. They'll come back pretending nothing ever happened, as if you weren't the punchline in every room, as if they didn't help bury the version of you that kept saying sorry just to be accepted. They'll come back when you stop needing them. That's how you know the shift is real, because nothing attracts attention like someone who stopped caring, someone who no longer seeks validation. You become magnetic, not because you're trying, but because you're dangerous now. Emotionally bulletproof, strategically cold, a presence that walks in and makes the whole room recalibrate. And let's be real, it's kind of fun, watching the panic rise in people who thought they knew you. The ones who underestimated you so deeply they never saw this version coming. The version that doesn't just play the game. You are the game, and the rules, you rewrite them mid-mat. But let's not lie. there's still pain. There's still that ache when you remember who you used to be, how much you tolerated, how often you let yourself be small because it felt safe. And sometimes, yeah, you miss that old self, the softness, the innocence. But then you remember that version of you wouldn't have survived the storm you walked through. You didn't kill your old self. You rescued the part of you that was trapped underneath it. And now they don't get to tell your story. They don't get to define your tone, your pace, your impact. You took all their doubt, all their dismissal, and turned it into something no one can ignore anymore. You stopped asking for room. You took the whole damn stage. There's a moment, doesn't matter where or when, where you look in the mirror and realize you're not carrying the weight anymore. You are the weight. You're not fighting to survive something dark inside you. You've become the thing darkness fears. And the world? It hasn't caught up yet. They're still looking for the old version of you. The soft one, the hesitant one, the one who used to second guess every move just to make sure nobody felt uncomfortable. But that version, gone, buried, replaced by something colder, something quieter, something that doesn't flinch when doors slam or people disappear. You stopped mourning your past, and you started building from it. The Soul-Snatcher wasn't just some entity that took over your life. It was the catalyst, the final push you never asked for but desperately needed. It didn't break you. It stripped away your illusions. It burned your old identity to the ground and dared you to rise from the ashes. And rise you did. You didn't become emotionless. You became selective. Your love got sharper. Your trust got expensive. Your attention? Unavailable to fools. Now, you don't chase energy. You sit in silence and let everything reveal itself. You read patterns, not promises. Vibes, not words. This is where people really start to panic. Because you're not reacting anymore. You're not explaining. You're not trying to prove you're worth staying for. You let them walk, and then you move forward like they were never part of the blueprint. That's power. That's transformation. And it terrifies people, because most are addicted to their own patterns. They crave drama, chaos, reassurance, attention. And you became untouchable the second you stopped playing that game. The moment you realized your peace was too expensive to rent out to people who only visit when it's convenient. You became the version of yourself they swore you never would, not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the most unforgettable. The one who walks in and the air shifts. Not because you said anything, but because your presence holds a silence they can't decode. A silence that carries every battle you've survived, every betrayal, every scar you wear like armor they'll never earn. And the best part? You're not even angry anymore. That's what confuses them the most. They expect rage, revenge, retaliation. But all they get is your absence, your elevation. Your silence that echoes longer than their words ever could. You're not the storm they saw coming. You're the one they never noticed until it was too late. Now they want access. Now they want answers. But you don't owe them a single word. Because here's the truth they'll never admit. They only feared the Soul-Snatcher when it looked like a monster. But now that you wear it like a second skin, like it's always belonged there, they finally realize you were never possessed. You were becoming. Somewhere along the line, you stopped waiting to be chosen. You stopped hoping someone would come save you. validate you, believe in you. And here's the truth nobody saw coming. You were never chosen. You were summoned. Not by fate, not by luck, but by every moment you were underestimated, humiliated, discarded like you didn't matter. You created this. Every time they called you weak, you swallowed it like poison and forged something lethal inside. That darkness, it didn't consume you. It responded to you. Because only the ones who have been truly broken know how to rebuild themselves from wreckage into weaponry. Let that sink in for a second. You weren't the lucky one. You were the inevitable one. All the signs were there. The way you watched in silence, the way you absorbed pain without flinching, the way you mastered your rage like it was a language only you could speak. They thought they could keep you small by ignoring you. But silence is where monsters are born. And now, the Soul-Snatcher isn't something inside you anymore. It is you. Every scar, every suppressed scream, every piece of you that was once fragmented, rebuilt, reinforced, refused to stay broken. What makes this even sweeter, you never had to shout to prove your transformation. Your evolution was subtle, strategic. You let your absence do the talking. You let the silence stretch until it became unbearable, and then you returned. Not as a person, but as a force. The ones who left, they don't get access now. The ones who doubted, they have to live knowing they had a front row seat to your rise and still couldn't see it. As the curse of the blind, they mistake stillness for stagnation until it devours them. And you're no longer fighting for a seat at the table. You are the table, you are the conversation, you are the storm they thought they could delay, avoid, or silence, let me guess. You're feeling something right now, a fire, a pulse. That tiny voice inside you whispering, this is who you were always meant to be, and it's not wrong. That's not arrogance, that's recognition. You know it now. They didn't fail you, they freed you. And here's the last thing I'll say. Maybe the Soul-Snatcher didn't choose you to haunt you. Maybe it chose you because only someone who was once powerless could be trusted with real power, not to abuse it, but to own it. You're not a victim of your past. You're the architect of your aftermath. So let them keep talking. Let them keep trying to box you into who you used to be. They said you were powerless. And that's exactly why you became the perfect host for everything they feared. This was never just your this was your arrival.